Hey, welcome everyone to this YouTube Live. We're just going to be getting started shortly. So thank you for joining. Hey guys, for those of you who are just joining now, we're going to get started in about a minute. Just going to wait for some other people to join and we'll get started. Hey, welcome Jerry. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, great. Hey Jerry. Thanks for joining. Thanks for joining us. Okay guys, well let's go ahead and get started. Want to thank you guys all for joining this meeting. Today we're going to be having a guy named Will Stamp join us. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a great business professional. He's been starting up some amazing businesses lately, and he just had another appointment he had to go to, and so sorry Michelle, got the anyways, but yeah, so he'll be joining us in a little bit. We just yeah, he just had another appointment. So we're going to be talking about some business basics before we get started. But before that, we're actually going to have Jerry Corboy just talk to us about some things that we just need to see changed or improved within FireWheel. And so for those of you who are watching in South America, Jerry is the region leader for the Africa region. And so Jerry, I'll hand it over to you. What were some of the things you wanted to talk about today? Great. Thank you so much, Jerry. Unfortunately, your video quality is just a little low, just because streaming from Ghana. But thank you for sharing all of that with us. I think that the gist of it, guys, is that we need to be a lot more responsive on Slack. There's going to be a lot more information that's going to be going on. So we just need to just make sure that we are paying attention to what's going on in Slack. So thank you so much, Jerry, for sharing that with us, and thank you for joining this call. Great. Okay, well, take care. Let me see. Okay, so guys, diving into this now, we are going to be talking about some business basics. So let me go ahead and share my screen right now. And for those of you who are joining, just so you're aware, we are going to be having a guy named Will Sant lead up the most of this meeting, but he wasn't able to arrive here until 11:30 or at 6:30 your time in Ghana. So before he gets here, I'm just talking about some entrepreneurial basics, and so let's go from there. Let's see. Oh, whoops. Okay, let me back up. Okay, sorry guys, I'm still trying to get used to all of this. Okay, great. Here we go. So this is a lesson that's going to be available shortly. I'm just working on some final edits, and then this will just be available in the Google Classroom. But this lesson is called Startup Central, and it's just going to be focused on helping you guys get your businesses started. So this first quote I'd like to read off. It is, entrepreneurship is living a few years of your life like most people won't, so that you can spend the rest of your life like most people can't. And that was given anonymously. But that's a very famous quote, and I hope you guys will. Okay, guys, sorry. I'm just looking at Google, sorry, at the YouTube Live right now, and it sounds like you guys are having problems with the sound. Can you guys hear me currently? If so, please let me know, just in the YouTube chat. Anyways, so going back to this quote though. I hope you guys will live this quote, and you guys will just all just do what it takes, because whether you start up your own business or it's your own career, this is just going to be so important, just to live like an entrepreneurial life, and just to live some of these elements. So let's get started right into this. This is a diagram I just found online of how to start a business. There's multiple ways. I just say this is the traditional way of starting a company. Now, this is targeted at something called a product-based company. Oh, okay. Sorry, Teddy. I'm just seeing your text. Thank you. I'm glad you guys can hear. So, finding a product. We'll get into this more in depth later, but there's two major types of companies that you can start. There's called a product-based company and a service-based company. A product-based company is when you're actually, like selling a physical product that people can use. So, if you just think about clothing or food or any of that, like you're selling a product to someone, right? Now, a service-based company is where someone pays you to do something for them physically. So, if you paid someone to come fix your roof, or you went to the doctors, that's a service-based company, and that's going to be pretty different than what we're talking about today. So we're just going to be talking about product-based companies today. But let's just go through this diagram and what I've seen other companies do. So the most important step, and we'll get into this later in today's lesson, but it is to find a product or idea. This is super crucial because a lot of companies don't choose a good idea, or they choose an idea that sounds great, but people aren't willing to pay for it, if that makes sense. So there's this term in the business world where if companies are selling a product that sucks, it's almost like trying to sell ice to Eskimos. Meaning that if you're trying to sell ice at a gas station or at the store, you can sell that. That's a great idea. But if you go up to Alaska or somewhere where it's really cold and you're trying to sell ice to Eskimos, to the natives there, they're not going to buy it, right? And so this step is so important, just finding the right product. And so this is I like this diagram though, because it doesn't say that you need to invent a product that's gonna revolutionize the world, or even just reinvent the wheel. I don't know if you guys have heard that term, reinvent the wheel. Make a different wheel. But okay, sorry, I'm getting that you guys can't hear me clear. One sec. Let me go fix something. I'm back, guys. There's just the AC going on in the background. I just turned it off, or turned off the AC, but the heater, and so hope that'll work. Okay, so diving back into this, you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to create a new wheel. If you're trying to sell a wheel to people, all you need to do is just start and figure out how to make it better. Because the problem becomes is that when people try to reinvent the wheel, they just make it way more complicated, and it's just really hard to, especially starting up your first company. And so I would just recommend to each of you who plan to start up your own company, especially for the first time, it's pretty much a must that already just find a product that is popular but not yet perfect, because there's already, that shows that there's people who will already buy it, right? So yeah, you figure out how to improve it, make a prototype. So let's just go back to the wheel example. You're going to study it out. You're going to figure out how to improve it. Maybe we need a wheel that has better traction on dirt roads. And so what we do is make a prototype. And this prototype could be very, very simple. The problem that becomes is that there's some people who can spend over $100,000, even $500,000 on a prototype, and obviously we don't have that option, right? So a prototype could even just be a visual diagram on a phone, right? If you were going to prototype a food, you want to invent a new food, or something like that, or I don't know, just a snack or something, it would be a good idea to obviously make it and start letting people eat it and taste it. But I would say for most products, just to go back to the tire example, if it's too hard for you to actually create a tire with better traction, because that's going to cost lots of money to get a prototype, I would just say just write up a diagram online. There's plenty of apps that you could use to just use graphic design, or even talk to someone in the group. We have plenty of graphic designers. So the next step is to show the prototype to 100 people. This part is so important, because what a lot of people will do is they'll start right here. They'll say hey, I have an idea, I want, I have this idea for a tire with better traction, and then what they'll try to do is just go ahead and sell it. And the problem with this is when they make all these tires, let's just say we made 1,000 tires, what we find out when we're trying to sell it now is that this isn't actually what people wanted. Maybe they wanted a tire that's I don't know, that's more smooth riding for their car, or they wanted something else. And so this is why it's so important right here to just show the prototype and talk about your company, talk about your product to 100 people or more, and get their feedback. This is something that we'll be talking about in later times, but there's also something called a pivot. And I won't get too much into that, but it's pretty much just like adjusting your plan. So, for instance, like with the tire with traction, if we found out that like people, I don't know, maybe just like they wanted like a purple tire, right? Like they just think that purple tires would go well with their car. Like we talk to people and find out that they don't actually want tires with traction. They want purple tires. And I'm just using a really random example, but that just goes to show that usually when talking to people, that's when we can figure out like what they actually want, right? So this is the part right here. Remake it. I didn't realize that was there. Remake it. That's pivoting, right? So you talk to people and they're like, okay, like we want a purple tire. So you remake the prototype, and that's when you could just, I don't know, if you're using like graphic design, you just like make the tire purple, right? So then the next step is to find a co-founder who can build it with you. Now, this is an optional step, just to clarify, but it is a very important step. Just because, two minds are greater than one, and you need someone you can just like turn to for support. It doesn't even necessarily have to be a co-founder. It could just be someone who can help you out in certain areas, but they should be someone who like understands that they're going to have like ownership of the company, or they're willing to work for free at the beginning, because you just really need that support. Now, the biggest mistake that I see companies make, and I'll put this in the notes, you guys, because this is a very important step, and it doesn't really share that right here. Don't just choose a co-founder just because they're a friend or a family member. That's the worst decision that you could make, because far too often I've seen with other companies, what will happen is there will be this really ambitious person who like inventing this tire, and then they like bring a family member along who seems really interested, right? But like the family member or friend has no idea what they're doing. Like they don't have anything to add to the team, right? Like you could be really good at like creating a website, like just marketing and all these things, and if your friend or family member doesn't have any skills and they're the co-founder, then you'll find later down the road they're really just going to be holding you back. Now that's not to say like if you're both starting out and you don't really know what you're doing, and you're both willing to work for it, like they have a history of actually getting stuff done and working hard, and I think that's fine. But just far too often I just see people who just think, hey, like I need a co-founder, so I'm just gonna just find a family member just because, and then their business fails later. So I would just say, please be very careful about choosing a co-founder. Now splitting, we're going to be talking about this later, but just make sure you're open to splitting ownership with your co-founder, because they're going to be doing a lot of work. And we're going to be talking never split it 50-50. We'll be talking about how to actually split up parts of the company, so we have responsibility, but we'll be talking about that at a later day. The next thing is there is someone called an investor, and like it says right here, it's a person with a lot of money who will give you that money, so that way they can have ownership in your company. So what this looks like is they're pretty much saying like, hey, I'm going to give you $100 right now to help you start your company, so that way when it grows, maybe I can get like $1,000 back. Like you guys will pay me back later. This can get a little bit confusing because it's kind of like a loan, but it's not. Investors with loans, they just say, hey, like you're gonna have this fixed rate of always paying me back. With an investor, it is like it says right here, you actually get a percentage of their company. So that would mean that let's just say that we split this up. So I have 45% of the company. My business partner has 45% of the company, and the other owner, the investor, owns 10% of the company. So what this would look like is if we, I don't know, let's just say like next year, 2021, we made I don't know, let's just say like we made $1 million, right? So we would just split up that like those profits amongst us. So my partner would get $450,000. I would get the other $455,000, and then the investor, just because he gave us their money, they would get $100,000. So, like I say, if this isn't really making sense, that's fine. We'll get back into this. The important stuff is just to realize that it is good to find an investor. So then you make the product, you start selling the product. It says to 1 million people. That's a lot of people actually, but that's every business owner's dream, right? And so they get more money, and then what most people will do is that they'll list their company on something called the stock exchange, and that's just we'll get into this later. This is kind of a more advanced topic in terms of stocks, but you do that so that way you can either like sell the company or sell shares, or you don't even have to sell parts of it. There's plenty of companies who there are plenty of companies who don't sell off shares or anything. Okay, so Matthew, I just saw your question. You asked, after finding the product or idea, how do you buy the idea to study it in detail? That's a great question. So what I would do, and I think it's, if I'm understanding your question right, like all you have to do is just go, to the store and get it, or even look on it online. So for instance, like if I wanted to prove a tire, like you don't always have to buy it, right? Like, I mean, if you have a car, you can go and look at it, but if you really wanted to, you could go buy a brand new tire. There also is something called a SWOT analysis, which is where you evaluate the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That's an advanced concept too, but we'll begin into that later with marketing. But it's just pretty much like you just like go look at a tire, like look at like the strengths and weaknesses about it. But like I said, you don't even need to buy it. You could just like look online, just like look at tires. Actually, what I found is most crucial is, and what I usually do is I'll just look online, right? Like I'll just go to like the forums. I'll just like look on Facebook and product reviews. Actually, I would say product reviews are the best place to look. So if you just like go to any online shopping store and just look at their reviews, that's a great way to study it in detail. Just find out like what people don't like and what they like. Yeah. Okay, so Doc, I also saw your comment too. You said, Micah, you were not talking about the audience. I'm a little bit confused by that. Are you talking about the audience right here, like show the prototype to 100 people? If so, I can go back and clarify a little bit more about that. Just let me know more particularly about what your question is about. Okay, if you guys have any questions too, as we're going through this, let me know and we can go back, but let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so I decided to show this as one of the first slides just because this is so important to understand why startups fail, which means like startup companies, and why your company could start up, or why your company could fail. So you guys can go back and look at this, but there, as you can see actually right here, the main reason that companies fail is that there's no market need. If we go back to this other slide, it was because people, what happens is, people just like decide, oh, I want to do a tire. Like I think this would be a great idea. Like I want tires with more traction, and they don't talk to other people. And so like no one ends up buying it because they're like, we don't need that actually. Like that was just your idea. So yeah. So Doc, I just see your question now. Yeah. So you asked because to find the product, to know your audience, what they have interest. That's actually a great point. I would say that step, like actually finding the audience, is actually showing the people to, prototype to 100 people. As you show it to more and more people, you'll find out like who actually wants, like the tire. And for those of you who are in the marketing class, and also those of you who are the entrepreneurship class, there actually will be a step that we'll talk about. It's called segmentation, and that is a process of actually finding your audience and who will actually buy the product. But like I said, there's actually a lot of steps that are in between the lines of how to start a business. But these are just kind of like the overview. If we're gonna look at this from a plane, this is what it would look like, right? So yeah, I encourage you guys to go back and look at this and just find out why compel. This is crucial, because if you can avoid all of these things, so make sure that you have the right product that people will actually want to buy, that you have enough cash like you planned out, you have the right team to get started. If you have all those things, then you will be a lot farther ahead of the game. Okay, so there's also this link you guys can check out later. Okay, so we're going to be talking now about finding the problem. This part is so important, as I have mentioned, because we don't want to be selling ice to Eskimos, right? Eskimos already have tons of ice. We don't want to be selling ice to them. So there is a video I do want you guys to go and watch. We can't watch it on the YouTube Live, unfortunately, but whoops, I don't want that. Okay, so let's talk about this diagram. When you're finding your problem, this is where businesses start, right? Because if you want people to pay you, to fix it, you need to make sure that the problem is actually there. And this is something called a sweet spot right here, where you actually want to build your company. So what this would look like is, let's say that I am good at playing the piano. Let's say that I really just enjoy just playing the piano in my apartment, right? Now the thing is, the truth of the matter is, does the world really need me playing the piano right now? And the truth of the matter is, yes, but there's already tons of other people who are playing the piano, and so that may not be the best opportunity. But so the reason I say this is because there's so many people there who say, I really like doing something, or I really like this, and so they just they try to just create a company that's in these two areas, but they avoid focusing on what the world actually needs, and so they just never actually get paid, and their company fails. And so going back to my example, maybe a more profitable idea would be in the sweet spot to actually offer piano lessons. It's what I'm good at, it's what I love to do, and what the world will pay me for it. Now, just to confirm, this is only just to find a solution if you want to get paid. For instance, I love playing the piano, but I don't expect to get paid from it, because it's a really competitive environment, and people who actually do perform a classical performance, they spend years and years and hours, and I just don't want to do that. So I just play the piano for fun. But if I did want to get paid for playing the piano, I would offer piano lessons. Okay, guys. So with that said, we actually have Will joining us now. So let's bring it right into it. Hey, Will, how's it going, dude? Hey, not too much. Okay, I'm just going to bring you up real quick. Okay, great. One sec. Okay, Will, can you try saying something?
Hello.
Okay, sweet. I think the audio is working now. Sweet. Okay. Well, guys, if you have any issues with the audio, just let us know. Will, I bring this up because we just had a guy on earlier and they weren't able to hear him. We were just having some audio issues, but I think I figured it out. So great, Will. Thank you so much for joining us. I was just telling the group just about what was in Ralph's class back in the day, just about how to start a business, just the basic steps. And I just wrapped up with how to find a solution by finding a problem, and also, just finding a mixture of what you're good at, what you love to do, and what the world needs and is willing to pay you for. So we just talked about those basic principles. So yeah, would you mind just telling yourself, talking about yourself to the group, like I don't know, just like your life history and what your experience has been so far with starting up companies and where it's at?
Sure. So Micah and I actually were in that class together. It seems like Micah talks about it a lot. Had a strong impact on me. Loved it. I graduated from university in April of this year, right into the middle of the pandemic. So I had a couple jobs lined up as soon as I graduated, and I was super hyped about it. But then, of course, all of them fell through once everybody got hit pretty hard, not knowing what was going to happen into the future. So I was kind of left with nothing. I was graduated with a degree where basically most of the jobs were luxury, and so a lot of luxuries kind of took a hit with the pandemic, and so it was hard for me to find a job. So I just decided to start doing my own thing and take the principles I learned in about entrepreneurship and give it a shot. So I started an online business. It was my first business I'd ever done, and I was connecting sports coaches with athletes, but they were not just a sports coach, they were like a mental sports coach. Anyways, it was going pretty well. I was starting to get coaches onto the site, and people were just starting to get on when I had somebody kind of reach out and say, I love what you're doing with the website. Can you help me do it for my website? And so I said, yeah, sure, I can probably help with that. So I agreed to come on, and I started working with them, and I started realizing, like, hey, my understanding of the, how to do an online business, even though I knew nothing initially, just figuring it out and diving in and getting started taught me so much that I was able to help other businesses do what I was trying to do for my own business. So then I started seeing people on LinkedIn just start saying, we need help with this, or I started reaching out to connections, and they started saying, hey, actually, we could really use your help with, doing this part of our marketing or working with us on our website here. So things just kind of started to fall into place as I started, using my abilities to start helping people. And the more I was helping people, the more I was learning, the better I got. So then the more results I was able to get, and the more I could share with other people that I'd done, gotten specific results. And it just, because of my initiative, because I decided to get in there and start building and start working, people were recognizing that work. So that's kind of how I got started into my media business, Sant Media. I've got a couple clients now. I do Google advertising, I do website building, I do Facebook advertising, marketing campaigns. It's really a blast. I love it. Love dedicating time to building companies. The best thing about this, and Micah may have already talked to you about it, is that there's no risk. It is a zero risk business. I don't have any overhead. I don't have people that are there's, if a client leaves or something goes wrong, it impacts the revenue and it impacts my profits, but, I'm not struggling to cover any, costs. I didn't buy anything. It's all just services. And so it goes really well because I didn't have a lot of money to start with. And so it's great that I can, get started without having a lot of risk. So that's a little bit about Sant Media and kind of how that got started, and a little bit about what I do. A second business I started, and I think this is one of the most applicable businesses to anybody looking to start a business. Just recently, I started doing something really popular in the U.S. is putting up Christmas lights on your house, and I was amazed at how much people are willing to pay for someone else to come put Christmas lights on their house. And so the great thing about this business is I didn't need to, like I said in the first business, this business is a no risk business. So I can call people, I can set appointments, call people up and just say, hey, we're putting out, we're putting up Christmas lights. And they say, okay, this is the length of my house. This is the kind of lights I want. We get that all set up. They agree to a price. Then when I show up to the house with the lights, I put them up. But the very money I use to buy the lights is the money they're paying me to do the job. So I never need to worry about, if I'm going to have enough money, because they're paying for us to come to do the work. And so the business is a no risk business. It's just a service, something that people need. And I think that is the easiest way to get started in a business, is to find a need that people have that's low risk. You don't need to buy tons of equipment, but find a way to get the job and to secure the deal, and then um, work out the prices and the money later, after you've calculated a way that you will for sure walk away with a profit. So I think, in the idea, can anyone start a business? Definitely. If anybody can start a business, if I can start a business and somehow bring a profit, I think anybody can, because I have no idea what I was doing. I actually didn't even know how to put up Christmas lights when I started putting up Christmas lights. I just said, hey, this is what we're doing. And then on our first job, I taught myself how to do it. So, if anybody's looking to get into anything, I say, yes, you can definitely do it. My degree didn't help me at all in terms of learning how to own a business and run a business. It's just the dedication and the willingness to get something started and provide a service to other people that they need. So that's kind of a summary there. That was kind of quick. Was there anything else that you specifically wanted me to go through, Micah? Sure. So let me just give an example of each that might explain it a little bit, what a high risk, high reward company might look like. Let's say that you wanted to start a cell phone tower business. Like, you wanted to build a cell network. You have to build all the towers. You have to put lines everywhere. You have to get connections, and you have to have different headquarters and customer service and all this stuff. That's very high risk, because if it doesn't go well, then you've got all this stuff on your books and you don't have any revenue to pay for it. So that's really high risk, because there's a lot of money you have to put in up front, and if it goes wrong, you're left with a big pile of stuff you don't want to deal with. A very low risk business would be like newspaper distribution business. You go to some newspaper place and say, hey, I'll distribute these newspapers. For every newspaper I distribute, I get this much money. And they say, great. You're not putting any money in. There's no cost to you, but you're throwing the newspapers out there. But the profits from that are very small, just because the margins. Every newspaper you're making cents. When that was a thing. So that's kind of the differential, is that people think that those two are correlated. If you have high risk, there are high rewards, but if you have low risk, there are low rewards. I think the businesses that I'm in are a good example of businesses that are low risk but possibly high reward. The Sant Media Company, for example, I do work online for these people, doing advertising, marketing, and things like that. There's no risk, because I'm not putting any money in. So if I lose my clients or things don't go well, the worst that happens is that's it. Is I'm not making any money, and I can go get a job, and I'm not in debt or anything like that. But the potential rewards are very high, because I can continue to grow the business and get more clients and get more clients. Of course, as I get more clients, I may need to hire people. But the good thing about being in the driver's seat is that if things start to go wrong, you're always in a position to organize and make things work, get more clients. If you start losing clients, you're the one in the driver's seat, so you can always choose what happens from there. In terms of the light business, it's the exact same. I don't pay any money and I don't get any lights until I already have somebody booked that's willing to pay. So, the margins are decent. It's not crazy. But it's my first year, just starting to figure things out. But as years go along, I get more and more clients, so those margins start to add up. And it's going to get to the point where I'm not myself putting up any lights. I just have employees putting up lights, and I'm just making money on the margin of me being able to sell the different deals. So I would say that especially for a first business, and this goes for me as well, I don't want a lot of risk going into my first business. I've heard so many horror stories of people that got sucked into a lot of debt, and it's super hard to dig your way out of. But if you can get experience in building a business that's low risk, you can start to understand the fundamentals of everything you have to deal with. There's, typically a lot of legal stuff you have to deal with. How do you manage employees? How do you manage clients? How do you manage all these things? It's, quite a process to try and figure it out. But I feel like once you've got it rolling, it makes more sense to start transferring and going into other businesses. But I think, overall, the best thing to get into is to the low risk, high profit businesses. And they're not super hard to come by if you think about it. For example, the Christmas lights, you can just look around and see other people that are doing it and say, you know what, I could do that. If I were to just give an example, I've been thinking about doing aerating people's lawns, which is kind of like you make a lawn look a lot better for the future in the fall. You just kind of drill into the ground in different spots. Super easy. You just rent one of those and drive it around, but people don't know how to do it and they don't have the equipment. And so all you need to do is book it, then rent the machine and then do it. And then you profit the money in between the cost of doing it and the price of the rental. And so examples like that, you could expand that and do as many houses as you want and get a lot of money, a high profit, and it'd be zero risk because you only pay once you have a deal. So that's kind of what that whole thing is between high risk, high reward, the low risk, low reward. That doesn't necessarily need to be true.
Okay, so that's great. I love those examples. So backing up a little bit, just curious, how much money did you spend starting up your Christmas lights company or your media company?
The media company, I spent zero getting that one started. So the only money I've needed to pay would be for different tools, but I needed the tools after I already closed the deals. So for example, I closed a deal to do marketing for somebody, but part of it would be design. Within the first, couple of days, I'd already spent some time working on it, and so I was already getting paid for it. With the money I was paid from the business, I went and bought the tools I needed to do the future projects for the business. So in the end, they were paying me to get the tools, and now I can use the tool, and I'm an expert in the tool. So I've been learning a ton, and all I had to do was close the business first, and kind of just be a salesman and sell my way into getting the money for that. Initial costs for the Christmas light business. I did go the route of starting an online website. I had some money set aside for it, so I think initially I had about $200. I had about $200 to build a website and to start an LLC for legal things. I kind of needed to do that, but basically there was some initial money up front, but I hadn't even done any of that until I had my first deal as well. So I already had a $400 deal that basically paid for the cost of the business right there at the beginning. So I guess technically you could say I started with no money because I closed my first deal just through a Facebook marketplace advertisement where somebody had come in and said, yep, let's do it. And then the other I just posted on Facebook. So majority of my business just came from, organic outreach. And up to this point, we've done a couple $1,000s in revenue already. So it's already paid itself off, and that's going well.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. The reason I said dang earlier, for those of you who are watching, is a concept that we learned in this class, which is to always try to start a company without ever paying anything. And sometimes you have to pay costs, and if you already had money set aside, that's fine. But it was just to prove it. In this class, we were asked to do that just because we needed to prove a point, right? That you don't have to have money to start a business. You can just say, hey, I can do this, and then once the money comes in, then that's actually when you start paying for the tools. So that's really cool. You did that with Sant Media. What would you say are some of the distractions or things you would change if you could do it all over again with starting up Sant Media or this Christmas light company?
I don't know if I'd go back and change anything about Sant Media, but my goals for the future are to do a lot more outreach and to try expand the business a lot more than I have been. I've just already been super busy with the clients I already have and the businesses I'm running, but I would love to start getting Sant Media to expand and get more clients and doing that outreach and kind of showing off some of the results to get other people interested. And then, once that starts expanding, I can start bringing on other people, teaching them my methods. And that way it's not just me running the business. I can have other people learning, and I could be growing the business and still providing, the results that I like. But I don't need to necessarily be directly involved as much as I typically would. And that would help me expand the business and make a lot more money that way. So that's one of my main goals with Sant Media. If I were to go back again with the Christmas lights, I would have prepared much earlier. I think a lot of people get up their lights a lot earlier, and so I missed the big wave, and a lot of people now are scrambling, and getting lights at this late in the year is kind of difficult. And so basically, because I'd never been in the business, I didn't know how to prepare for it. And so, it's always easy to look in retrospect and say, oh, this would have been so much better, or this would have been so much better. But, I just didn't know. I didn't know anything about the Christmas lights business until I decided to get into it. One of my favorite phrases, though, is the best way to be in business is to be in business, which basically means you're never going to learn what you need to learn about the business you're trying to do until you're just in it and you're doing it. I would have never known this information about, planning and going beforehand and emailing and talking to people in as early as October to put up their lights in November, which is what a lot of these companies do. I would have never known that until I was in the business, actually just doing it and realizing, wow, this stinks trying to do this all last second. This is the worst. But now that I know, next year I can iterate and change and become better and just move things forward like that. So I guess the big thing is there are things that you can change at the beginning, but more important than trying to start out right is to start at all. You just start and get moving, and then you change and iterate and become better as you move along. You can't, I think another way to put this is you can't change the direction of a bike unless you're moving. You can sit and move nowhere and just change direction on your bike all you want, but until you're moving, you're not going to go anywhere. But it's better to move in the wrong direction and then turn and go back in the right direction than just spin in a circle trying to decide what direction to go the whole time. So that would be my biggest thing, is the best way to be in business is to be in business and to get started.
I love that. I love that example with the bike. And going along with that concept of just getting started, there is Oriental proverb that goes something along the lines of the best time to plant a cherry tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is to plant it right now. And so, for people, who haven't started their careers or haven't started a company, or, they want to do Christmas lights in December, the best time is to start right now. So I love what you said there too. I mean, I think a big thing going along with that I learned in Ralph's class as well was something called an MVP, which is just a minimal viable product, which just means get a product up there. I imagine you probably don't have a fancy logo or a professional slogan or any of that, right? It's okay.
No.
I figured that because you're already generating revenue within a few days, and that's guys, that's honestly how the best companies start, is just because you just have a basic idea or service, and that's what a minimal viable product is. It's just the basic things, right? And then I imagine next year, Will, you might have a logo, you might have a better website and a better outreach program. But I think it's really cool that you started immediately.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. So last question I'd like to ask before we get headed off, and then maybe you could share kind of some final thoughts. What do you think differentiates yourself from an entrepreneur, someone who's actually generating revenue, from a wantrepreneur?
I think it kind of goes back to basically that bike analogy. A wantrepreneur is someone who just kind of spins around and says, oh, I've got a good idea. Oh, here's another good idea. I've got so many good ideas, but I'm just going to do none of them because I don't know how to get started. But, I have a lot of friends like this. They'll send me texts every week saying, oh, man, I've got this great idea. We should do this. And I said, yeah, you should. You should do that. Go, start it. And they'll say, yeah, maybe not. Every time. And the more they keep sending me these ideas, the more I end up just not even responding, because I know that instead of being somebody that wants to get out there and do an idea and fail, they just want to think of good ideas, and that is good enough for them. You get a dopamine hit when you get a good idea. Like you feel good about yourself when you have a good idea. And sometimes people let that good feeling be the end of it. They're like, wow, I just thought of an awesome idea. That's so great. Well, that's the end of it. And an entrepreneur is somebody that says, that's a good idea. Why don't I give it a shot and see what happens? You get out there, you give it a shot, and you fail, and you say, well, that's fine. You got to have the self-confidence to say, even if I fail, that doesn't reflect on me personally. I go ahead and keep trying and do the next thing. Like my first business wasn't a success. I didn't generate any revenue. I, had built this website and had built all these connections, and, I had a great idea and I wanted it to move forward, but it wasn't right for the time. It wasn't generating revenue, and I was, super, tight on money, and that was all I had. And so it took me starting another business basically to support myself until, probably later this year when I pick up that business again and start building it again. I'm still interested in building it, but for now I have to put it on pause while I focus on my revenue generating companies. So I guess that's the biggest thing is to get out there and do something and say, how do I make money today selling something, and then deliver. So I would say that's the biggest difference between an entrepreneur and a wantrepreneur. Is an entrepreneur takes an idea and says, I'm going to give this a shot. And a wantrepreneur says, that's a great idea. Someone should give it a shot.
Yeah, and I love that that story at the beginning. Like there's, I know plenty of too who do that same thing as well. Just it's like, this is a great idea. Like we should do this, but they're just not willing to ever actually do it. They make excuses, and some of those excuses are real, like they're just starting a family or they're really busy with school. But it's like they're still an entrepreneur. If you really want to do it, you gotta actually make it happen. There was also a really good example I liked from Ralph's class where he said an idea actually costs you about like a penny or something, because like if you write an idea down on a piece of paper, you just like wasted a piece of paper, because if you do nothing with it, right? If you just write down the idea and just leave it there, it's costing you money, and so it's a lot more worth it to actually just go ahead and do it. Actually find clients and bring in money from that. So thank you so much, Will, for answering all those questions. So we're just about to wrap up now, but before we do you have any final words of wisdom? Wisdoms? Like wisdoms? Wisdoms. Yeah, before we hang up.
Only other thing I'd say would be, you only need to be better than the worst guy in the industry. That sounds kind of sad, but I'm putting up Christmas lights, and there's other guys out there that are doing massive trees, and they're doing massive buildings, and they're doing massive projects. And I just realized I don't need to be that to be in the business. All I need to do is to be better than the worst guy, which basically means I just need to show up and give people just do a good job. That's all I need to do, because there's a lot of people out there that do a bad job. And so that there's money to be made, and you only need to be better than the worst person in the industry. So if you can find someone, they've got clients, but they're not doing a good job, all you need to be doing is take one step in front of them, deliver a good service, and you'll have a business. And so that's kind of why I'm saying, and a lot of people will say, just get started, is because
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for, oh, sorry. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Will. I really like what you shared, and especially it's just really cool to see what you're doing, and after Ralph's class, and you're actually like building businesses that are actually like earning you a living, and you're making a career out of this. So thank you so much
Yep.
for speaking to us. There are many people in this program. I would actually say the majority of them who are just so passionate about starting up their own company. So thank you for sharing your advice, and I think this is really well needed. So thank you so much, and we'll see you around.
I think you're on mute, Micah.
Okay, yeah, sorry, we're having sound issues, but we'll see you around. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.